Next speaker is a BMPA loyalist. He's been at many BMPA functions and doesn't really need an introduction, but here goes. I'll be short. Naresh Khanna is the publisher and editor of Indian Printer and Publisher and Packaging South Asia, both monthly trade magazines. Naresh Khanna was born in Mumbai and educated, trained in India and the US in modern philosophy, computer programming and offset printing. He was employed in the print industry in the US and India till 1979. And since then has worked as a consultant to leading printers, publishers and organizations in India, Bangladesh and Nepal. Today he's going to speak on a subject around which our entire theme was designed: enable, change and thrive. Post his talk, Naresh will call upon Mr. Vasant Goel of Gobsons. Naresh will discuss with Vasant his strategy of thinking big and how the next generation of print thinks or should think. I want to tell you a little bit about Gobsons. They are one of the largest manufacturers of printed books in the country. The latest plant in Sivakasi is capable of producing 35,000 hardcover, 150,000 paperbacks, and 125,000 saddle stitch books, all in a day. Please welcome on stage Mr. Naresh Khanna and later Mr. Vasant Goel.
Well, I'm very glad to be again part of your conferences and events in Bombay. I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think this whole Print Summit is, well, really taking off. I think it's something that you have institutionalized now, and that is part of what needs to be enabled for the industry to change. And as has been done earlier also, I'd again like to thank, I think the sponsors need to be acknowledged. I think without these companies supporting us, it's difficult to make events like this happen. I think it's quite important that all these companies are supporting the BMPA Print Summit. So, initially, actually, I was supposed to be the moderator of the session, and I am more comfortable in that role, frankly, because I think that these conferences can, to some extent, become a little bit difficult with just presentation after presentation, and it's more interesting if we can actually have some question and answer and some interaction. Okay? So we will try to do, that's why I invited Vasant to also come earlier. We will try to use less than our allotted time to speak ourselves. And hopefully there will be some time for interaction. Okay? So what is the amount of time that we have now? Okay, there's a clock. 33 minutes. Okay, we try to speed up the whole thing. Okay. See, we are not talking just about growth today. The whole idea is to talk about how to enable or create a situation where we have something better than growth. Okay, where we have more than quantitative growth. We have something called thriving. What does it mean to thrive? To thrive means to have a kind of qualitative growth as well. Okay? To have a growth which is sustainable and which is better than just surviving or adaptation. And the danger of simply adapting and simply growing at, let's say, an industry rate or depending on the economy to drive your growth is that we will grow, we may grow, there may be challenges, but it's not very likely that we will thrive. Okay? But in order to thrive, you will need to do more. And of course, in industry, the basic law is the law of inertia. Okay? That things will continue the way they are. ये गाड़ी तो ऐसे ही चलेगी. Okay? And it's very difficult in our kind of industry, which is mostly family-owned businesses and small and medium enterprises, to shake that up. So the whole idea of today's discussion should be, I think, at least in our session, that is it possible to shake things up? Is it possible for us to actually act on the external conditions? And to reiterate, so we are sitting together now, today, basically to interact and to understand our research. Activistars is my small company which does research on the print vertical. I would say that our industry is actually a pocket of faster growth than the GDP. Much faster than the GDP. Okay. And we are sitting today, or we are here today to examine if we can, as professionals, influence the environment. Is there something that we can do beyond being acted upon by the economy? Is there something that we can change and influence that will actually improve our chances of growth? So can we be proactive? That's the question. And can we thrive? Can we grow dramatically rather than merely grow? And since we are talking about qualitative growth, what is that qualitative growth? That means what is not merely the growth in top line, but also in bottom line, and in terms of sustainability and other kinds of issues, which are beyond simply that of our own small company, perhaps. Okay? And what can we as printers do? Which is, we don't normally think we can do, but which many printers have done. Printers historically have been inventors of technology. And the question is, what do we mean by growth? Do we mean growth in terms of personal growth or growth for the family? Do we mean that our business should grow enough so that we can now invest in a house, so we can marry off one of our children? Or are we talking about some kind of real growth in building a sustainable entity and contributing in some significant way to the economy, to the industry and to the economy, and even to the country? I don't think it is immodest of our industry. I think, in fact, in many ways, our industry is too modest. We don't see the power of what we can do as printers. That means, as printers, why can we not, for instance, drive a campaign against AIDS? After all, when I was a UNICEF consultant, we did $6 million worth of printing in 1 year in 1990 for the unionization program. We drove the entire printing industry. We drove it towards modernization in those 2-3 years. Okay? And I think many of the printers here are witness to that. So there is no reason why the printing industry cannot drive projects in education, maybe on something like traffic safety. That means we do not, in terms of, there are many things that we need to do outside our industry, to project our industry, which will actually create demand. And I don't think we often think of that. But I think India is a land of opportunity, really, for print. But, although we want to do things outside, it is difficult to escape the fact that all these things are connected. That we cannot jump outside our industry, we cannot jump outside our economy. And that we need to drive them to some extent from our own business also. It's not as if we can do something outside and that will solve the problems in our business. But we need to think of how we can marry the two. So I would like today to briefly just throw up some names of success stories of Bombay, of Mumbai. Excuse me. And I am not someone who knows deeply about all of these companies. Some of the companies we've actually heard about. And there are many other companies that actually are also success stories in Mumbai. But what I am arguing for today is that we need to actually broaden this information that we have, that we are sharing. And we need to turn these success stories into case studies. Okay? And we need to go deeper into these success stories. And the success stories are, of course, and these are success stories of change. Okay? We have Vakil's Print Media. I think you have Bimal Mehta here. He happens to be here from Vakil's Print Media. You have Repro Offset. I don't know if anybody from Repro Offset is here. You have Parsons Graphics. Now, Parsons Graphics is an interesting story, and I don't know everything about how everything has happened in Parsons over the years. But I do know this family when it was one company in 1990. And then one part of the family, one part of the growth, one part of the enablement of growth became Parsons Packaging, and another part became Parsons Graphics. It's interesting in the sense that this creation of two companies, for various reasons internal to them, and which was done very amicably, actually has unleashed value on both sides. And since today, I think, is primarily a conference of commercial printers, not necessarily packaging printers, I think the interesting story to talk about today would be Parsons Graphics. Okay? And Parsons Graphics is a thriving commercial printer. And it has a very interesting relationship both with technology adoption, absorption and adoption, as well as with generational change. For instance, I did a conference about 3 years ago on digital printing in Mumbai. We did a conference called The Future of Digital Print. That time I had a conversation with Sunil Kejriwal. I said, won't you come to this conference? And what do you think about this? He says, I hate digital printing. I will never do digital printing. I will never work for these companies who charge me a click charge. Why should I be their employee? Okay? I just didn't see it. Then, I saw him later. I saw his new generation people come in. I was very happy to see some of the women in the family also coming into the business. This is really very important. And of course, a few weeks ago, months ago, I read about the fact that he has bought a digital press. So, in preparation for today's event, I actually had a conversation with him yesterday. I said, how did this happen? Why did it happen? And he said, look, I went to Drupa, and we saw that there is, to some extent, there is a plateau. There isn't that much investment in R&D happening in offset anymore. And we saw Landa, we saw this, we saw that, we saw things are happening. Even if it doesn't work yet, it is bound to work. The paradigm is correct. And so we went for this. So then I asked Sunil, I said, did the next generation have something to do with it? He said, yes. Okay. Laughingly, of course, he said, yes. So I said, well, you pushed into it? He said, yes. Animesh pushed me into it. Okay. And I said, yes. That is the secret. Because if you cannot interest your next generation, if you cannot enable your next generation, if you cannot bring them into the business, if you cannot grow fast enough to attract them, why? They are educated people. Why will they come into your business? Why will they stay with you? So this is very interesting. So I think Parsons at many levels needs to be a business school case study in succession. How the family developed these 2 or 3 entities, and how various parts of the family, various entities in the business are growing and adding value. And Sunil also told me now I have set up a new plant in Taloja, which is another part of the paradigm. If you are going to grow in Bombay, in Mumbai, where real estate is so expensive, you really cannot afford to be a printer in Mumbai unless you are doing something very, very valuable. Okay? But being the fact that it's the entertainment capital of the world, it's the commercial capital of the world, it's not of the world, of the country, and the financial capital of the country, the media capital of the country, in the sense, advertising industry. There is certainly a lot going for Mumbai in terms of high-value services. And that is something that has to be looked at. So, Parsons. Then you come to Comart. We heard from Freddie about some of the changes that are going on. And I have also known Comart through a couple of generations. And I think I will try to save time, where we talk not only to Vasant, but we get 1 or 2 questions. We can ask the people who are here. Parsons is here, Comart is here, Dimal is here. I think the stories are really right here in Mumbai, the success stories. And they need to be, and the success stories in Mumbai are more important than the rest of the country, because Mumbai is the place where the pressure of the future is highest. This is where the real estate prices are skyrocketing. This is where the opportunities of the future come before anywhere else in the country. And this is where a lot of the jobs that were normally there in Mumbai, a lot of the work and a lot of the industry that was there in Mumbai has been driven out of Mumbai. Okay? You have got 1,000 multinationals operating out of Gurgaon. Because Mumbai is not a place where a multinational wants to set up business anymore. Okay? It's priced itself out of that equation. So there are many things to understand. We have some people from Unique here also. Unique is another company I know for several generations in Mumbai. It is also a business which has changed. Okay? I remember Ashok Derkar as a tough guy. And he's still a tough guy. Okay? But the business has changed remarkably because of his son, who's not a tough guy in that way. Okay? Who is perhaps, with due respect to Ashok, okay, who I love and who's a great friend of mine. With due respect, you need to be flexible. You need to adapt. And they have gone from being, just as Commerce has gone into various digital areas, export of packaging, pre-press and pre-media, as Vakil's pre-media has also gone. Commerce has gone into label printing. It has actually gone to, Unique has actually gone into the Middle East, set up a plant there. Okay, so I remember once, many years ago, I think it was in 1990, I brought a copy of the Seaboard Report to show Ashok later. And I said, look, this is what's happening. The color separation will be done on a Mac, and it will be, the recorder will be some other device. That's how it's going to be. And Ashok later said to me, this is terrible. This is horrible. You know, I need to invest over 1 crore. I can't buy something which anybody else can buy. I need for there to be a gap between what I do and the rest of the industry. Next time I came to Mumbai, he took me aside, showed me that he had bought a Mac for the video. Okay? So what I'm saying is that change comes from knowledge, from understanding, but it comes from flexibility. And as tough a guy as Ashok always was, he was always keen to survive. Okay? And I think next generation is keen to thrive. I mean, it's not as if Ashok is not interested in thriving, he's thriving. Another example is Technova. I don't know how many people are aware here that Technova was a printer at one time. Okay? It was one of the finest printers in the country. It is the only printer in my life which I ever saw which actually did color balancing of transparencies. Okay? They actually duplicated the transparency before doing color separation. Okay? And technologically, the two people, apart from Technova, Bourgeois was the other person who I respected because he actually knew something about neutral density equations and stuff like that. Okay. So Technova was a strong force, but there you have a visionary personality who saw the opportunity of transforming the entire industry. So in Brother Parekh, you have a person who actually was able to see the opportunity for the industry as a whole. So he became an enabler. He enabled us to become good color offset printers. And he did the same when digital plates came and CTP came. He became an enabler for India to be a powerhouse in printing by early on investing in developing digital plates. Okay, so this is a very interesting example of, and this is also, as I say in the later slide, we need as an industry, as printers, to invest in those people who are investing in the future and who are innovators. And similarly, I think the BMPA has an opportunity that you have something on the share to benefit program, which I've heard about. I'm looking forward to attending one of these meetings sometimes, but I haven't. But if the share to benefit program does even half of what it claims to do, okay, and if it is even 1/4 as good as it sounds, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It needs to be institutionalized, okay, just as your print summits need to be. The other aspect is, as an industry, now we had Dr. Rao speaking, and some of you saying that we need to have models. We need to have a special understanding of the printing industry. Okay. There have been, because I have a small research company, I've had banks call me up at some time. They're saying, we lent money to this guy. He bought this press. In this case, a Japanese press. Now the yen has gone through the roof. And now he's in trouble. What should we do? Okay, I mean, I was flattered, to be called by a banker and over the phone for my advice. Of course, I wanted to sell him some consultancy, but I wasn't able to. So I said, look, this guy has bought a printing press. He's bought a multicolor press from a well-known international manufacturer. He's a bricks and mortar investor. Okay, he's not gone and gambled his money in the stock market. Give him more money. Okay, so what I'm saying is that we need, you are asking the bank to do research. Why doesn't the BMPA do research? Do you know that the BMPA is the leader of research of this industry in the world, so far in this country? That in 1984, it was Arun Mehta who did the first research project of the Indian printing industry. The flip side of it is, unfortunately, he gave it to ORG, who didn't know anything about printing. Okay, so in 1984, they studied a lot about letterpress. Okay, and so that study is a little bit skewed in that direction. But the whole idea is that we as an industry need to invest in real data and research. And we need to come up with techno-economic models of what is going to work here and what is not going to work here. I don't think we can rely strictly on what is happening elsewhere. I don't think many of the PIRA figures, etc., are too reliable for at least India. And we need to create better forecasting models so that the bankers believe us, so that we actually have bankable projects. And that we do better than saying things like, well, we are buying this machine and it will create so many million impressions. If I was a banker, I would say, please get lost. Okay, I don't want to hear about the number of impressions you're going to have. Okay, I want to know more about things like, what are the impressions you're going to get paid for? What is the rate at which you're going to get paid? And what are you going to do with those impressions? Are they going to lie as work in progress in your plant? How are you going to get it out? How soon are you going to be able to bill? So I think this is an issue that we need to enable change. We are talking about, we want to bring down the cost of borrowing. We want our industry to have to be better understood by banks. But we are going to have to invest in that also. Okay? In many ways, investment doesn't mean money only. It means events like this, etc. Then there is the issue of diversification. In some cases, diversification is necessary. Parsons is again a good case study of that. A very, very serious investment in the direction of packaging. Okay? And that unlocked a lot of value in that entity and created new entities. The other issue is educating the next generation. Okay? Many times we send our youngsters abroad. We send them either for just having a rubber stamp that they have done something abroad, they come back with a diploma, can't figure out what to do. I met one young man recently in Mumbai who's been educated in a very, very fine place. Very, very fine place. Very, very high level education is received in printing. Okay? But my biggest fear is how soon will he run away from the family business? Unless the family business is enabled to change, to keep up with him, and to take advantage of his talent and his enthusiasm. This is a kid, I'll call him a young kid. Okay? But he drives every morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning to beat the traffic to reach New Mumbai. Okay? Because the condition in Mumbai is not a livable condition in that sense. And if you are sending your next generation to Mumbai, how will he get there? He doesn't want to go through this traffic, and that's his job. And the question for him is that how soon and how will he influence and how will he become part of this business? Okay? And this whole process of bringing the next generation in is very important. And of course, you have to grow fast enough. If you're not going to grow fast enough, then the next generation is not going to be interested. part of this enabling is you have to do the normal things, you have to get into best practices, you have to get into standardization, all the things that they have been taught, and which you are not doing, which you say should be done, but which you are not doing. Okay, for instance, we had the summit on ISO 12647 3-4 years ago in Mumbai. We had it in 3 cities around the country. So far in India, only 2 printers have gone in for ISO 12647. Okay, it's an abysmal situation as far as standardization. Then there are the environmental standards. I believe the environmental laws will eventually be enforced even in Mumbai, even in India. And then there are the training issues. Okay, this industry is not going to change unless you do some enablement in it and a training of skilled manpower. Because actually you're dealing with a situation where a Maruti worker is getting 40,000 rupees a month. Okay, and this is in Gurgaon or in Haryana. So you are not going to be able to cope with the industrial situation in Mumbai. And I know some big commercial printers who came to Mumbai and who ran away because they could not handle the labor situation. So this is going to be a very serious situation. And I believe that even in family-owned businesses, you are going to have inclusion of women owners. I think there is going to have to be some kind of shake-up possibly of what family ownership means. And particularly what is going to be the share of the women. And what is going to happen to their share when they get married? Because I do not think this industry can ignore the very large asset of the family which consists of women. Okay? Which it has largely been doing. And essentially the industry needs to have some cooperation for training, knowledge programs, etc., etc. And it needs to look at other kinds of things. Traditionally, as was pointed out by Sham Sahiomo and others, as Tushar Dote also highlighted, you need to do marketing versus sales. And I think you need to expand your share to benefit program. Whenever a company does a program for its customers, it wants to do it exclusively for its customers. It does not want to introduce its customers to the other printers.